So with that, I'd like to move us into our next session where we have Hana Kim presenting her case study on the opera Sweetland. Let's bring Hana in. Hi, Hana. So great to have you here.
Great to see you all. Thank you so much for reach out to me with this opportunity. It's a really honor to be participating.
We're very excited to hear your presentation. Yep, and we'll be talking about an LA opera. So Hana, we'll give it over to you.
Thank you. So I believe my slide might be up already. Hi everybody, my name is Hana Kim, and I'm a projection and sometimes scenic designer based in LA. I'm originally from South Korea, Seoul, South Korea. And today I'll be presenting a case study of a new immersive opera projection designed back in March. And we had to shut down midway through the performance, It felt surreal back then, but it was a site-specific immersive opera that was developed by the LA-based experimental opera company Industry. The little doodle you're seeing is a note I made in one of the earlier meetings, trying to understand the show structure when I was first approached about this show. And minding you, this was a new opera, which meant the material was not completely written when I came on board. So, but the show flow was there, and this was pretty much like all there was when all the creative team came together. It kind of like showed the basic structure. Audience took on the role of the arrivals who would arrive on the black box one. This is called, one spot, and meet another civilization, the host. And then they diverge into two different tracks, train and feast, to experience train one story, and then they come out after that one story is done, go into vortex/crossroad section, where it was like another communal space for everyone to see each other again. And then they go back into the same set they came out from to experience a different side of the story. It was basically like one story from like two different perspectives. And the show flow really wanted to reflect that. And after they experience another side of the story, they go back into the black box too, where it also like had a significant set change and everything to experience like another bookend of the show, that from the same place they started the show, but then with a very different visual. But we wanted to treat these different segments and different size of the audiences throughout the show, because some portion of the show had all the audiences together. Some portion of the show only had half of the audiences. And we had that objective, but we didn't know, and we had an objective of a video working as more of a glue bonding everything together. So we wanted to have projection into these big communal area, which was black box and the vortex, but we didn't know what to project, where to project, what's gonna happen, nothing yet. So we started from the site visit, mind you, because it was on like site-specific immersive opera. And then we started brainstorming about the visual of the show. This much area was the area that was assigned to us. And this was, you don't really, I'm not sure if there's any LA residents in the audience here today, but if you visited LA State Historic Park, you hardly see water there, but like one of the day we had water, and then it really reminded us like what the site was before LA became, LA became LA. In the very origin of this site was occupied by Yangna, one of the First Nations, Yangna community. And then there was a river there, actually. We don't have it anymore. And because of that, this area was actually a prosperous dwelling community. And then, some other more site And then it felt like this area felt like a good area to have like crossword set in. And then there was a flat ground area that was kind of closer to the parking lot. So this black box area that we wanted to have where we start the show and end the show logistically needed to be close to the parking area and have it on flat ground for the easiest access to all the audiences, because it was the biggest audience kind of group size that we had. So basically site dictated like where it needs to be. And then once we decided on the spot, it opened up a view that we didn't expect to see. And this idea of projecting onto the city environment came about when we were doing the site visit. And after the site visit, this was kind of like the structure and then like overall show design that the team came up with. And this was the black box structure. We had a screen installed that would open up the show for the different vista for the black box 2 later. And then this was one of the set pieces for the set. This was a train set, all train and piece that had circular motif. And this was the pathway or audiences, like the diverged audiences had to walk through to get to each respectable set. And this is a little, I'm gonna play a little excerpt from the show. And the first thing you're gonna watch is the first projection moment in Black Box 1. And Black Box 1 was the most kind of quote conventional theater structure where we wanted to play with a bit of trope of opera theater, hence the red curtain. But I'm playing here with a bit of like water distorted texture as well as Yangna community's rock painting motif to give it a sense of like, give it a little bit of heads up of what is to come next. And for the black box, we wanted to play with the rather like obvious use of the video in the show. We had a screen hung that took projection. And then it was the closest to kind of like creating like graphic world for the direct support of the story and somewhat like more of the scenic use of the story. And then like also like here playing with a little bit of map motif as well. So this was kind of like one of the more like expected use of video in the show. And then after Black Box 1, audiences go into their respectable track. And then after that, they gather back together at the crossroads, as I mentioned earlier, which was an open area with visual and sound installation inspired by Hadashinani's creation story of Sky Woman Falling. Ooh, yay, live presentation. I'm hearing some sirens. But, in the story, a woman falls from the sky and to save her turtle and other natural elements from land beneath her. Here I wanted to play with deep time, like conventional time versus universal time, linear and parallel. So there's a train motif to represent the push up the civilization. And this directional movement goes back and forth in time, eventually morphing the effects of the time. And the sky woman falls upward, and the herd animals from ancient civilization and train from our contemporary time kind of mix together. Then audience go back to experience the story number 2 in their respective tracks. And after that, gather back in the Black Box 2 to end the show. By the time they come back, the screen's gone, like how it is now, and we see the city vista instead. Aesthetic here is pretty dry, matter of fact, and very different from the illustrational quality of the Black Box 1. There are overlapping voices from Ghost of This Country, and then you don't really, I kind of like really lower the volume. But those voices, we really wanted to support it with the text element. So that's why we saw like text going across, all the librettos going across the billboard. And then there are some graphical gestures here. Yangna community's drawing was used again, but in a different way and more raw, less curatorial, and projected directly onto the land and the bridge. So that was the show after all, and we end the show like so. So that was the show after all, but to get there, there was a lot of twists and turns because of like, it was like two giant monsters meeting together, which is like new opera, the fact that it was a new opera that's being written as it's being developed. And another thing was the site-specific part. So we started having the creative conversation. We didn't know the scope of the video, but the budget was already fixed because it was also kind of like nonprofit art project that they had to work with the grants they got. So we couldn't achieve any of the dream ideas we had with the initial budget. We could have like, I think, you know, in that case, like we could have like scoped it down and then made something beautiful out of it as well in a different way. But this time something crazy happened. We ended up getting sponsored by Panasonic, which was like an amazing turn of the events. So they offered up for us to provide the projectors, which was the biggest ticket item in our budget in our case. So we were able to achieve a lot of it, but at the end of the day, we still had to figure out like really ingenious way to install projectors. We were sponsored. You know, we'll get to that later. So this is the plot version, I think it was like version 4, but total 11 projectors were scattered throughout the park, and 6 of Panasonic 10K lumen laser projectors were blended to cover the bridge. And to calculate the right brightness with the street light situation, which we don't have any information. You know, we reached the city and whatnot, but like we couldn't really get the answer. So I had to like do this kind of like guerrilla type of testing, sneak out at night and then kind of like project with my home projector and to see like what kind of lumen would work. And it seemed like actually like 10K could do the job. We could have been brighter, but you know, within the means. And we were able to get one 20K lumen laser projector for both black box 1 and 2. We needed to figure out a way to make it work with one projector covering 2 different surfaces because we couldn't get 2 20K projectors. And we were also provided with 4 of 6K lumen laser projectors. And then initially we wanted to use all of that in the crossroads section. So but this had to change such last minute that like it doesn't even have a plot. So one of the wildest parts here was the crossroads configuration, because I've never worked with water surface before, and also the fact that, yeah, so this is like the close-up view of the Parkle's building. So we initially wanted to have the water area to be like in the between these 2 sets. So to be able to figure out the water structure, mist wall, we called it mist wall. We were able to work with this amazing architect and installation artist called Alex Schrader to guide us on how to build a mist system to project onto. So when we were having initial conversation to have like, you know, these were the stakeouts of 2 sets and then having it in the center. This is, I flew a drone to kind of like get the survey because we didn't have any real survey or drawing, only the Google Earth photo. So I had to fly drone to like figure out where they moved the tree because Google Earth photo is also like not real time. So all the tree configurations were important to us as well. So that had to be done. So our dream of having it in this area was crushed by the reality of where they had the water valves, because we had to use the water source they had. Also, like we wanted to be mindful. This was a production examining origin of America and also being conscious of the land. So we wanted to respect the land we're at. So we also didn't want to use new water. So we had to rely on the recycled water source that the park had, which is shown in this picture. So they had a few valves here, and then we originally thought we could run the hose to the center area to have the mist wall installed in the center area. But it turned out the water pressure they had was actually not sufficient. So we had to change, that's why we had to change where our system was going to be installed. Then came the time to test if this idea would even work, and to figure out what type of content need to be created for this type of particular wall too. We built out a section and then tested offsite. So this was like one of the very first tests we did. And I actually tested like a very different type of like different like contents to figure out like which worked. And it looked like just like really simple silhouette was the only thing that worked, because it's also like multiple layers of mist. Anything that had like really real detail on it, it kind of like got lost. And then we had to test it again with the actual park water pressure. And then also we were testing with this time of the day where we're going to be at. And also like this is where that kind of like dot motif came about as well, because when I tried like different, this is actually herd animal from above. I'm not sure if anyone was able to see it. But I didn't have the dot motif in the beginning, but like when I tested out with the drone footage of the animals going across like from a very like far away view, it was pretty effective. And I realized like maybe that kind of simple graphic gesture is going to be the way to go. So once park water pressure dictated where the screen needs to be, which was different from our dream, but it's a different type of dream, which is the fun of like dreaming, I suppose. It was actually turned out to be better, I think, than the original plan they wanted to do. So once that was dictated, like we had to figure out where to put projectors to that relative to the surface area. And then the projector had to go into this swamp area actually. So this is like in the earlier photos that I showed where the water was running in the park. This is that area actually. So it has like, it goes deep down from the walking pathway. And then there's a possibility of water going down there if we get any rain. So we had to build it up pretty high, and then, you know, these are all kind of like waterproof pockets for the cables, and you know, pretty scrappy way of doing things. This was a solution for us to be able to project onto two different surfaces, which was like one scrim surface here, and then one billboard surface there. So those were the two surfaces we wanted to hit with this one projector, which meant we had to do different height. And we ended up not moving back and forth, but basically like we had to be able to, because we had to swap out the lens over the course of the show as well, which was a pretty crazy daunting test. It was possible because we had these pockets of like set and feast set where like audience will have no idea what's happening outside. So when we're doing the black box set change, we basically bring down the genie, swap out the lens, and then we made we remembered like where genie needed to land. Basically for the billboard, it was easy because it was like it had to go just all the way high as possible. And then we bring it back down for the black box one, where it had to point out the screen. And this was like, we didn't really get any like real rain, but like when it was drizzling while we were testing, we kind of freaked out and then made this alien creature. This is Tess, this is Erin. We had small but really, really amazing video team. This is showing the configuration, how it was installed on top of the park office building for the bridge. So you can see 6 projectors pointing there. And we basically used Home Depot table. We did calculate all the weight and then like how the top of the office building can support the how much weight, and then made sure everything is safe. We did encounter this this little moist here was from the day and night temperature change, because we were all in outdoor. So Panasonic, man, it was amazing. They were so durable. They like, you know, we were out for like more than 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, and they were amazing. Like, but we did cover them up every night, and then we took good care of it. But there were some wear and tear that, you know, there were some things that it was unavoidable. So this is another view. And then also another, because of the design choice was to make it pretty dry and like quote, quote, matter of fact for the black box 2, even the graphic elements, I was playing with just kind of getting the motif from the existing street light. So, this was, and then we projected onto the grass. We tried it, didn't really work out, but like it was like having fun. This was the view from the top of the office building. Oh, and then these were the kind of like roof insulated material that I got to make little boxes for projectors so they can be protected from the daylight sun. So I think that's about it for this journey.
Great. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Really amazing.
Really incredible.
Yeah. Beautiful work. It sounds like easy to plan, very straightforward, no surprises. So that was nice.
Right.
Hannah, how long did you have on site to you're writing an opera as you go, you're facing all these design constraints or changing set of rules as you go. How long did you have on site to get it together?
In terms of like the site time for so we had about a month to build the sets and everything. But if I go back to the set, the thing is like some of the things we had to, so these were like pretty big structures. So to be able to build 2 of these type of structures and then this type of pathway, they had about a week. But for the video team, we had about 2, actually we only had about like a week and a half, because also like because it was like a sponsor, like it would have been, we already made our schedule to be pretty tight, because even we were to rent the whole thing, we had to really minimize the rental period because of the budget constraint.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were sponsored by Panasonic too, though, that came out, actually that got confirmed like pretty late in the game as well. So we only, at the end of the day, I think we started getting the gears and then like start installing and then like playing around and doing different things like for like a week and a half.
When did you
Righto.
sleep?
Yeah, good question. After it opened.
And tell us about your playback system.
Oh yeah, so playback system, I'm just gonna go over to the overall plot. So for the bridge, I know like a lot of people would be, I don't know, like it was not like the most right way to do it. I'm gonna just like say it out off the bat. Because we were under like such constraints. So I ended up using watch out for 6 projectors that was blending to the bridge. It did have some challenge because it was not, it's pretty 3-dimensional. So mapping wise, it was pretty challenging to a degree. But it was actually like doable, very, very doable. Because the bridge is like relatively flat surface until you have those like bumps, little bumps and architectural details. So we had to, and also we had to fake the blend. Yeah, so you can tell that like we were able to kind of like fake a little bit of blending. Like this was really challenging. Anywhere they had like little details, that was challenging, but it was pretty doable with the workarounds. And for the mist wall, we used QLab.
The mist wall is really beautiful, and I don't think I saw it in this presentation, but one of the photos you and I looked like together, looking at the mechanics of the tubes driving the mist wall and the different layers, and the result is just, it's really visually engaging, and imagining this all like evolved and came together while you were solving all these other problems around the space kind of makes my head spin a little bit. But it's sometimes the magic of not having the time to think too critically about the thing and just go with it. I mean, that's where some of this magic happens. I feel like it's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of also like these distances between nozzles were also dictated by what's available at Home Depot. So that kind of there were a lot of things that were not necessarily 100% custom made, but it worked out for the better.
Yeah.
How about that? How about the lens changing in situ? How many times did you move the projector and find yourself in trouble during that process? Or that would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, it was really scary. I was really surprised to because Panasonic was so all about it. Like they visited the sites, and then we were so scared that like we were like, this is probably like, very different scope of budget we had. Like it's just like different than like commercial projects they might have seen more. So we were like this genie situation and all of that, but they were like actually thrilled about it because that really actually showed how durable it is. Yeah, so we had, it's not really shown in this photo, but we had a little bit of like, we also made tiny woodblock lens supporter because those lenses are pretty big and heavy, and we didn't want them to rattle while they go up and down.
Yeah, it's a lot of glass. Well, absolutely beautiful work, and congratulations on meeting all those changing constraints so beautifully.
We're really happy to have you here today, Hannah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was actually, so you can actually see that the set was not even constructed by the time we were doing it, because they were also like the building schedule was also too tight for the scale that we wanted to do things. So you can see that like there's nothing in front of this genie when this photo was taken, because the set was not being built yet. And we had a stake on the ground. So we kind of knew like roughly this is kind of like where we can put our genie onto, but we had to adjust it later as well. So there's a lot of
Is the show still running, or the run is over?
So runs, like we had to cancel it because there was also another folder like working with the city part of it all. So
Yes.
city already had like our schedule booked that was not, we couldn't do the full run because of the COVID-19. But it's also
Right.
something that we could not bring it back later because everything was so, like even the fact that I think the show went up was pretty miraculous given like all the parties involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, expect to hear from me with more questions about your work. I'm intrigued. That's all the time we have for now. Hannah, thank you again so much for that presentation.
Not a problem. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Hannah.
much. Thank
Talk to
you.
you again.